A, file a FOIA or public records request.
Twice a day.
You're going to send a letter to the clerk of court or the county treasurer. It's going to say something like this. I hereby demand the freedom of information and their fiduciary obligations under 5 U.S.C. Section 552. A certified fair disclosure of all performance policies, payment bonds, insurance guidance, SF 273, SF 274, SF 275. And financial details about opportunities, securities, and financial transactions associated with cases of insert case there, and people actually state that you can insert all caps. What are you asking for? Auditors, customers, surety/principal parties, transaction notes, or escrow accounts, CC1 filings, and you're asking in your official capacity, not as a defendant, but as the beneficiary or authorized representative.
Now, Ed Martin is with the
UCC search and
fellow
Secretary of State.
American
Do you state's UCC search report?
required that we examine the device card and
Your case,
it
you're searching for UCC one financing statements. If a judge or prosecutor finds your case for commercial purposes, they may have filed a security case that that means that that's operating in commerce. See, it's it's short. Between A and B, if you're lucky, think of this. 16, wait, 17, your name. These companies like the SEC, GSA, or third-party lookup services, Site 15 U.S. Section 78, which mandates the registration of public securities and your right to demand full disclosure of anything tied to your financial identity. Number 4, how to demand without pushback. Here's how you stand tall. Use I demand, not I request. Identify yourself as the beneficiary or authorized agent of the case state. State clearly that this is a fiduciary matter, and that non-disclosure constitutes fraud and breach of trust. Use wording like this. Failure to provide full and complete disclosure under 78 5 U.S.C. Section 552 and fiduciary obligations under commercial law and public trust will be deemed willful concealment, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty, punishable under federal law. Now you've got leverage. Dash. Bonus. What to execute. Here's your list. SF24, SF25, SF273, SF274, SF275. Bid, performance, and payment bonds. Court's insurance policy number. Bonding company name and contact. UCC1 filings. Clerk's fiduciary bond. Court's DUNS number. Treasury Direct or CAF or linked accounts associated with the name. If you want a ready-to-send template letter, you can drop into the mail or file online. Click the link in my bio. I put one together that commands attention and results. You don't beg, you don't ask. You demand as the rightful party, and you hold them to account. How to find out how many securities were created in your name. You don't ask, you demand. Let's talk about how. A, file a FOIA or public records request. You're going to send a letter to the clerk of court or the county treasurer, and it's going to say something like this. I hereby demand, under the Freedom of Information Act and your fiduciary obligations under 5 U.S.C. Section 552, a certified full disclosure of all performance bonds, bid bonds, payment bonds, reinsurance agreements, SF 273, SF 274, SF 275, CAF or tracked accounts, and all instruments, securities, or financial transactions associated with case number, insert case number, and the legal fiction statement, insert all caps name. What are you asking for? Bondholders, custom members, surety/principal parties, transaction or escrow accounts, UCC1 filings, and you're asking in your official capacity, not as a defendant, but as the beneficiary or authorized representative of the name. B. Do a UCC search through the Secretary of State. Visit your state's UCC search portal. Look up your all caps name, your case number. You're searching for UCC1 financing statements. If a judge or prosecutor bonded your case for commercial purposes, they may have filed a security interest under that name, and that means the court is operating in commerce. See lookup CUSIPs and securities. You can demand any CUSIP number related to your case, your bond, or the name being used as a trust. These might be tracked through the SEC, the GSA, or third-party lookup services. Site 15 U.S.C. Section 78 rules, which mandates the registration of public securities, and your right to demand full disclosure of anything tied to your financial identity. Number 4. How to demand without pushback. Here's how you stand tall. Decide to identify yourself as the beneficiary or authorized state. State clearly that this is a fiduciary and that non-disclosure constitutes fraud and breach of trust. Use wording like this: failure to provide full and complete disclosure as required under 15 U.S.C. Section 78, 5 U.S.C. Section 552, and fiduciary obligations under commercial law and public trust will be deemed willful concealment, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty under federal law. Now you've got leverage, cash, bonus, what to ask for by name. Here's your list: SF24, SF25, SF274, SF274, SF275. Bid, performance, and payment bonds. Port's insurance policy number. Bonding company name and contact. UCC1 filings. Clerk's fiduciary bond. Port's DUNS number. Treasury Direct or CAF or linked accounts associated with the name. If you want a ready to send template letter, you can drop into the mail or file online. Click the link in the bio. I put one together that demands attention and results. You don't beg, you don't ask. You make this the rightful party, and you hold them to account. How to find out how many securities were created in your name. Let's talk about a file a FOIA or public records request. You want to send a letter to the clerk of the board, your treasurer, and it's one of the cases you invest. I hereby demand, under the freedom of information and your fiduciary obligations under 5 U.S.C. Section 552, a certified full disclosure of all performance bonds, bid bonds, payment bonds, reinsurance agreements, SF273, SF274, SF275, CAF or tracking accounts, instruments, securities, or financial transactions associated with case number and the legal fiction estate name. Insert all caps name. What are you asking for? Bond numbers, custody numbers, surety/principal parties, transaction numbers, one escrow accounts, UCC1 filings. And you're asking in your official capacity, not as a defendant, but as the beneficiary or authorized representative of the name. B. Do a UCC search through the Secretary of State. Visit your state's UCC search portal. Look up your own caps. Your case. You're searching for UCC1 financing statements. If a judge or prosecutor finds for commercial purposes, they may provide a security interest under that name, and that means the court is operating in Congress. See what about custody securities and any custody related to your case, your bond, or the name. These matters are through the SEC, GSA, or third-party warehouse services. Site 15 U.S.C. Section 78 rules, which mandates the registration of public securities and your right to demand full disclosure of anything tied to your commercial identity. Number 4. How to demand without pushback. Here's how you stand tall. Use how you demand. Identify yourself as the beneficiary or authorized agent of any selection statement. State clearly that this is a fiduciary and that non-disclosure constitutes fraud and breach of trust. Use wording like this: failure to provide full and complete disclosure is required under 15 U.S.C. Section 78 rules, 5 U.S.C. Section 552, and fiduciary obligations under commercial law and public trust will be deemed willful concealment, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. I'm sure you're effective law. Now you've got the knowledge. What to ask for? Here's your list: SF24, SF25, SF273, SF274, SF275. Bid, performance, and payment bonds. Port's insurance policy. Bonding company name and contact. UCC1 filings. Clerk's fiduciary bond. Port's DUNS number. Treasury Direct or CAF or linked accounts associated with the name. If you want a ready to send template letter, you can drop into the mail or file online. Click the link in my bio. I put one together that commands attention and results. You don't beg, you don't ask. You demand as the rightful party, and you hold them to account. How to find out how many securities were created in your name. You don't ask, you demand. Let's talk about that. A file a FOIA or public records request. You're going to send a letter to the clerk of court or the county treasurer, and it's going to say something like this: I hereby demand, under the Freedom of Information Act and the fiduciary obligations under 5 U.S.C. Section 552, certified full disclosure of all performance bonds, bid bonds, payment bonds, reinsurance agreements, SF-273, SF-274, SF-275, counter-traffic accounts, and all instruments, securities, or financial transactions associated with case number, insert case number, and the legal fiction estate name, insert all caps name. What are you asking for? Bond numbers, custom numbers, surety/principal parties, transaction logs, or escrow agreements, UCC1 filings, and you're asking in your official capacity, not as a defendant, but as the beneficiary or authorized representative.
Hey, is that it? Cause I don't hear nothing.
UCC search
But
through
if
the
that
Secretary of
motherfucker's
State.
still alive, go
Visit
get
your
his
state's
ass.
UCC search portal. Look up your all caps name, your case number. You're searching for UCC1 finances. If a judge
Johnny,
your case for commercial
hold up, man.
purposes, they may have filed
You
a
took
security
something that
interest under
belongs
that
to
name,
me. That's
and
some
that means the court is operating in
got mad
commerce.
respect for you.
See,
Respect?
look up
What the
customs and
fuck do you
securities.
know about
You
respect?
can
Come
demand
on, man.
any
You know
custom
me.
number
You just
related
tried
to
to blackmail me.
your case, your bond,
I had to hustle hard to
or
get that
the name
thing, man. I was
being
just trying to
used as
get
a trust.
paid.
These
Listen, I'm
might be
sorry.
tracked through the SEC,
You can wipe
the
the file,
GSA,
track
or
them
third-party
down,
lookup
so I can make this
services.
shit right
Cite
on God.
15 U.S.C.
You just
Section
tried to
78
kill me. But
leaders,
you know what? Let's
which
forget about
mandates the
that for a minute.
registration
The
of public
tracks in my
securities
phone,
and your right
that
to
shit
demand full
leaked, my nigga. The
disclosure of
shit is
anything
out there.
tied to your commercial
There's
identity.
no putting that
Number
genie
4,
back in the bottle.
how to demand
Johnny,
without
you think I'm
pushback.
a fucking dummy
Here's how
or
you
something?
stand tall.
Keep it real.
Use I demand,
Fuck you.
not I
Fuck
request.
you too, then.
Identify yourself as the
Watch your
beneficiary or
fucking mouth.
authorized
Take your ass
agent
back
of
to
the
the
name
golf
slash
course,
estate.
motherfucker. This
State
the
clearly
streets.
that this is a
Way out your
fiduciary matter,
element, man.
and that
It's funny that
non-disclosure
you should say
constitutes
that
fraud
because,
and breach of trust.
I
Use
got my
wording like
clubs
this.
right here.
Failure to provide
And by
full
the
and
way,
complete disclosure
I like the
as
9
required
iron.
under
That's my
15
favorite.
U.S.C. Section
Never
78
fails
leaders,
me, you know?
5 U.S.C. Section 552,
Feels
and
so
fiduciary
sweet,
obligations
so
under
nice,
commercial
and you
law
can
and
really
public
get a
trust
hold of
will
it,
be
you know
deemed
what I
willful
mean?
concealment, fraud,
Now
and
that's a
breach
great
of
club.
fiduciary duty,
I'll tell you
punishable
what,
under
man.
federal law. Now you've got leverage.
Bitch! Ass!
Bonus. What to ask for?
Motherfucker!
Reporters
Here's
rushing
your
in,
list.
murmurs of what
SF-24,
bombshell might drop next,
I don't even
SF-25,
feel
but
bad
nothing
anymore.
was prepared
SF-273,
for
Demos
what
are out there, and
happened
there's nothing I can do
774,
about it. And
Yes,
you know what?
that bonus
SF-275.
Turns
took the
out,
stand. What was once
Performance,
considered a decades-long
golfed up,
Ports
put me in a
insurance
better
policy,
mood.
suddenly became
bonding company
a
name and
Can
contact,
you give me a ride home?
UCC1 filings,
I got something I want you to hear.
fiduciary
Let's ride.
mortgage document, Treasury Direct or CAF or linked accounts associated with the name.
She didn't just bring word.
If you want
I
a ready
feel
to
like
send
we've been
template
through a lot
letter, you
together.
can drop into the mail or file online.
This shit,
And the
Click or
kind
visit
of
your
right
truth
phone.
here,
that made
I
people
put
sit
one
up and
together
there's a
listen.
lot of stuff in
attention.
The
perspective
first time
from Jimmy was right.
he was allowed to
You
say
Gotta stop
your
holding
do
on
it.
to
You
it.
do it.
Gotta start putting some of these
years.
demos out that
And
I've
what
been
she
working
said,
on
Find out
for
how
so
many
many
securities
years. You have
we
no
thought we
idea
knew
how much
about
shit
this
I got.
The
You
gallery
demand.
You
was
wanna hear
already
something?
packed before the doors even
Final
opened
FOIA
on
or
day
public
6.
This is a
records.
world
Journalists
premiere.
You're
lined
going
up,
to send
Right
a
here.
letter to the
eager
clerk
Right
for
here.
a
or the
glimpse
county
of whatever
treasurer,
headlines
and it's
they
going
could
to say something like
What
this.
they didn't
I
expect
hereby
was no
demand,
meat.
under
The
the Freedom of
Oscar-winning
Information
actor,
Act and your fiduciary obligations under 5
outspoken critic,
U.S.C. Section
surveying
552,
him
a
quietly but
certified full
confidently
disclosure of
from
all
the
performance
sideline.
bonds,
Did
bid
his
bonds,
legal team
payment
exchange
bonds,
glances?
reinsurance agreements,
Prosecutors shuffled papers with
SF-273,
fresh urgency.
SF-274,
Thinking, nobody had
SF-275,
released any
counter-tract
expected
accounts,
witness list.
and all
But the
instruments,
moment he took the
securities,
stand,
or financial
the energy
transactions
of the
associated
room
with case number,
Did he?
insert case
Dressed in
number,
a
and the
charcoal
legal
suit,
fiction statement.
visibly
I got the
tense.
Insert
chopper
all
He
waiting.
leaned
caps.
in toward
Let's
the
go.
What are
lawyer,
you asking for?
whispering
Bond
with a hint
numbers,
of confusion.
custom numbers,
Cameras weren't allowed
surety
in the room.
slash principal
The
parties,
sketch artist captured the ultimate trademark stoicism faltered. A
UCC1
slight
filings,
twitch in his eye,
and you're asking
the
in your official
tightening of his
capacity,
jaw.
not as a
He
defendant,
sat
but as the
her
beneficiary or
voice sparked
authorized
from the
representative.
first word. I was asked here to speak to
UCC
you,
search
and
the
that's
Secretary of
what
State.
I intend to do.
Visit your state's
For
UCC
years,
search
she
portal.
warned the world
Look up
about what happened
your all
behind
caps.
the velvet curtains
Your
of
case
Hollywood.
number.
She told
You're searching
stories
for
about being
UCC1
blackballed
finance
by
statements.
Tyler Perry,
If a judge or
Oprah
prosecutor
Winfrey,
bonded your case
and
for
Lee
commercial
Tennant.
purposes, they
People
may have
laughed it
filed a
off,
security
said she
interest under
was
that
bitter,
name,
that
and
she
that
was
means the court is
overreacting.
operating in
But
commerce.
now,
See,
she's
look
under
up
oath
customs
in
and
federal
securities.
court.
You can
Those same
demand any
warnings
custom
were
number
being
related
taken
to
very
your case.
seriously. The judge gave her permission to read from the clips she had prepared.
These might be
It
tracked through
chronicled
the
her personal
SEC,
dealings
the
with the
GSA, or
individuals
third-party
now
lookout
circling
services.
this trial
Site
like
15
vultures.
U.S.C.
The
Section
exact
78
dates of meetings,
which mandates the
phone calls,
registration of public
broken
securities
promises,
and your
and
right to demand
offers
full
made in
disclosure of
back
anything
rooms
tied
under
to
the
your commercial
guise of
identity.
opportunity.
Number 4,
Prosecutors
how to
nodded
demand
along.
without pushback.
Some
Here's
already
how you stand tall.
referencing notes from
Use I
Kathy
demand,
Ventura's
not I
earlier
request.
testimony.
Identify yourself as the beneficiary or authorized agent of the name/estate.
Monique's second
State
statement
clearly that
wasn't
this is a
aimed at
fiduciary
him directly.
and that non-disclosure constitutes fraud and breach of trust. Use wording like this: failure to provide full and complete disclosure as required under 15 U.S.C. Section 78, 5 U.S.C. Section 552, and fiduciary obligations under commercial law and public trust will be deemed willful concealment, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty, punishable under federal law. Now you got leverage. Dash. Bonus. What to ask for? By name.
When asked who he was referring to,
SF-24, SF-25, SF-273, SF-274, SF-275,
whatever you want to call it,
performance, and payment
observers
bonds,
gasped.
courts
Even
insurance
the
policy,
prosecution team
bonding
exchanged
company
elements.
name
This wasn't just drama, it was potential evidence of industry-wide collusion.
courts
Police
guns,
went further,
Treasury
stating
Director
that Harry
for
told
linked
her he
accounts
would
associated with
risk it because
Alright then.
there were too
Take it
many
easy.
If you
people
want to ready to send
signed
a
for too
template
many
letter, you can drop it in
NDAs.
the mail or
She
file
then presented a
online.
written
Click the link
transcript
in
of the
the bio.
recording.
I
A
put
call
one
where
together
Harry
that
told her,
commands attention
there are
and
things
results.
going on that I
You don't
can't be
beg.
connected
You
to
don't ask.
public.
Alright,
You
wait a
debate
minute.
this
Okay.
grateful
Things
Let's
that
head to the
public are
chopper.
to account.
that we're not supposed
How to find out how many
The judge
securities were
allowed the
created in
transcript to
your
be
name.
entered into
You don't
evidence,
ask.
but
You
barred the
demand.
audio for
Let's
now,
talk about how.
pending
A file, a
authentication.
FOIA, or
What made
public
this
records
moment so
request.
powerful
You're going to send a
wasn't
letter to
just
the
the
clerk of the
allegation,
county
it was
treasurer.
the
You fucking
And
with
it's
me?
going to say
realization.
What do you
something like
think?
this.
Multiple
I hereby
Hollywood
demand
events may
under
have
the Freedom of
Guess I'll
Information
take that as
Act
a
and
compliment.
fiduciary obligations under 5 U.S.C. Section 552. A certified full disclosure of all performance bonds, big bonds, payment bonds, reinsurance agreements, SF-273, SF-274, SF-275, contract accounts, and all instruments, securities, or financial transactions associated with case number, insert case number, and the legal fiction statement. Insert all caps.
Adjusted the microphone and said the words that would headline news stories by the hour's end.
Parties.
I visited Diddy's party,
Court
but I
escrow.
left because he saw something I wasn't supposed to. He testified that in 2006, she was invited to a private gathering in Los Angeles. The invitation came via a friend, a fellow actor who told her
Visit
it
your
was
state's
exclusive
exclusive search for.
and networking gold.
Your all caps.
He arrived at a massive estate in the
You're searching
Hollywood
for
Hills.
UCC
Valets took her
156.
phone.
If a
She
judge
was
requires
escorted
it
inside.
bonded
There
against
was
the commercial purpose,
her
they
immediate
may
play
play
softly,
based on that
and a
name.
rotation
And
of
that
male
means
and
the point is
female
operating
guests
in public.
ushered into the
See,
back room.
look up
I
customary
remember a
securities.
woman in
Till you
heels
can command
and
any
a man
customer
said nothing in
related
the
to
bathroom.
your case.
I remember one of Diddy's assistants
Or
saying,
in any these might
"You're
be
safe.
tracked through the
If you
SEC,
signed the NDA
GSA,
doc,
or
that's when
third-party
I
lookup
walked out."
services.
She
Cite
didn't sign.
15 U.S.C.
She never
Section
went back.
78
What followed
which
were
mandates the
whispered.
registration of
Monique
public
said
securities
her phone
and your right
stopped
to
ringing
demand
for
full
major
disclosure
roles.
of anything tied to your
Invitations
commercial
to
identity.
film festivals
Number
dried
4.
up. She
How to
heard
demand
from a
without
producer
proof.
that she was
Here's how you
being
stand tall.
difficult, but she never forgot that night.
Request.
And she always
Identify yourself as the
I
beneficiary
think
or authorized
she
agent in name slash
If you
estate.
had asked her
Stating
if she
clearly that
believed
this is
this
a fiduciary
experience
matter,
would stand
and that
back
non-disclosure
against
constitutes
events,
fraud and
she
breach of
nodded.
trust.
I think it
Use
was
wording like this.
orchestrated like a
Failure to
system,
provide
and
full
when
and
the
complete
accused
disclosure
played
and
one
required under
the testimony mirrors cast
5
eventual
U.S.C. Section
candlelit
552
room,
and fiduciary obligations
camera
under
setup,
commercial law and public trust
experiences
will be deemed
involving
willful
hired
concealment,
escorts,
fraud,
and luxury
and breach of
hotels
fiduciary duty
disguised as
punishable
networking
under
havens.
federal law.
But what made
Now
Monique's
you've got
account
knowledge.
stand out
Dash.
was her vantage point
Bonus. What
as
to
a
ask for.
respected
By name.
actress, not
Here's your
a
list.
subordinate. She walked
SF-24,
in on her own
SF-25,
terms and walked out with her career slowly collapsing behind her.
SF-274,
When the prosecution asked
SF-275,
Monique whether she believed
big
Tyler Perry
performance
had
and
actively
payment bonds,
protected Diddy's
courts
image,
insurance
she didn't
policy,
hesitate. Yes,
bonding company
she said,
name and
and
contact,
I believe it was
UCC
strategic,
filings,
coordinated,
clerk's
and part of
fiduciary
a larger effort to keep
Courts
things
statements
quiet. She brought up
Treasury
a now
Director
famous
accounts for
moment
linked
that many
accounts
saw on
associated
social
with the name.
media. Tyler Perry walking
If you
into
want to
Bishop
raise a
T.D.
template
Jakes'
letter,
megachurch
drop it in the mail or
and writing
file
$1
online.
billion check
Click the link
right
in the
there
bio.
in front of the
I
entire
put one together that
congregation.
demands attention
People
and
saw that as
results.
a blessing,
You don't beg.
Monique said.
You don't ask.
But I saw a transaction. She continued, that donation wasn't
How to
just
find out
charity.
how many
It was
securities
damage control. That church is a shield,
you
and
demand.
people like
Let's
Diddy
talk about
use it to create
a file of
events
FOIA
that
or
make them
public
look
records request.
untouchable.
You're going to send a letter to the clerk of court
Even
and the
the
treasurer,
Gladstone
and it's going to
will
say
take the sheriff's scribble
I hear
furious.
my demand.
Monique testified that around the same time
Fiduciary
Mary's church
obligations under
donation,
5
several
U.S.C. Section
rumors about
552.
Diddy and his party
A
were
certified
quietly
disclosure of all
disappearing
performance
gossip
bonds,
blogs.
bid bonds,
I knew
payment
then
bonds,
that
reinsurance
people were being
payments,
paid
SF
in
273,
science.
SF
That $1
274,
billion
SF
wasn't just for Chase.
275,
It was
gift
for
for
me.
tracked accounts,
It was
all
for
instruments,
my
securities, or financial transactions associated with the case,
just weeks after
insert
that
case,
donation,
and the
Harry
legal
and
fiction
Diddy
statement.
appeared together at
Insert
a
all
BBC
caps.
event,
What are
arms
you
around
asking
each
for?
other,
Bond
smiles wide,
principles,
as if the world
surety
wasn't
slash
certain
principal
of
partners,
accusation. It
transaction
painted a
bonds,
picture that supported
escrow,
Monique's claim that the
SEC
entertainment
filings,
industry
and
didn't
you're
just
asking in your
protect
official
Diddy,
capacity,
it
not
elevated
as a
him.
defendant,
Then she
but as the
paused
beneficiary
and
or
looked directly at
authorized
the judge.
representative.
You see, I'm not afraid of being
Doing SEC search for the
blackballed. I've
Secretary
been
of
through
State.
it. And let me
Visit
tell
your
you
state's
something.
these
Silence
world.
is the most
Look out.
expensive
Your
price
own
any
casualty.
of us pay.
Your
And
case
we all hate it.
you're searching
At
for
this
UCC
testimony,
financing
the
statements.
courtroom
If a
moved
judge
swiftly.
or
Hi, what do you need?
security
This is
first
the
after that name,
she said.
that means the
But
court is
Tyler
operating
Perry
in
admitted
No trouble at all.
Look out because of some security.
whispered.
You can
Monique
demand
had
any
been
kind
saying
of
for years that Tyler Perry privately apologized for the way she was treated with a precious fallout. But now she was saying it under oath
or
with a transcript to back it up.
Cite
I
15
recorded the
U.S.C.
conversation.
Section
He
78,
knew. I told
which
her.
mandates
He
the
said,
registration of
fine.
public
She
securities
handed the
and your right
papers
to
to the
demand full
bailiff, who
disclosure of
delivered them
everything
to the judge.
commercial
The judge
identity.
scanned the top flags, then nodded for the prosecution to
Here's how you stand
in the
tall.
transcript.
Use
Harry
our demand.
reportedly
By
says,
request.
I know I messed
Identify
up.
yourself
You were
as the
never
beneficiary
good.
of
The judge didn't want to work for free. I should have said
State
that
clearly
publicly.
that this is a
Then he
fiduciary
pivoted,
matter, and that
allegedly telling
non-disclosure
me,
constitutes
I
fraud
can't
and
go
breach
public.
of trust.
Such names wrapped up in too much right now.
Failure to provide full
Prosecutors
and
use
complete
this moment to
disclosure
explain
as required
how
by
Hollywood and the
USC Section
even those
78.
with clean reputations were afraid of the fallout if Diddy's secrets unraveled. He told me, he added, that if Huff went down, a lot of people were going with him. People that fund movies, people that sign checks. This part of her testimony validated what Trump's bodyguard Gene Field and even Christian Keys had hinted at, that Diddy's web wasn't just about personal power. It was institutional. Monique's voice was more emotional. He had a chance to clear my name. He didn't, because he was protecting something bigger than me, something darker than anyone wants to admit. The judge ruled the transcript admissible, a huge win for the prosecution, and Diddy's attorneys looked visibly shaken. A friendly phone call had just become federal evidence. Then came a name that hadn't been mentioned in this trial so far, but which instantly sent ripples through the room. Oprah Winfrey. Monique didn't bring her up casually. She brought her up with a point. In 2010, I told Oprah something personal, that I'd been abused as a child by my brother. She said she'd never exploit that, but she did. She put my brother on her show, and she did it right after I turned down the Precious Press tour. The courtroom didn't know what to do with that. It was emotional, heavy, but Monique wasn't done. She betrayed me, and when I asked why, she said it was business, but I knew the truth. They were trying to shut me up. She then pivoted, connecting Oprah, Harry, and Diddy through their shared use of NDA, ER practices, and mutual handlers. They all have the same people cleaning up messes. She testified, and I know this because one of those PR reps accidentally forwarded me an email chain, one where my name, Huck's name, and Tyler's name were all in the subject line. It was about how to manage optics. She handed over a redacted version of that email, which the judge took under review. But the message was clear. The power structure wasn't just protecting Diddy, it was coordinated. People signed NDAs. People were paid off. Careers were built or buried, depending on who played along. And Monique, sitting under oath, called it out for exactly what it was, a silence machine, built to crush anyone who asked questions. The jury watched as she closed her binder. Her voice never cracked. She wasn't rattled. She didn't need to be. Because for the first time, she wasn't just telling her story, she was testifying. As the court reconvened from a short recess, Monique did something nobody expected. She took a breath and calmly said, now, let's talk about the list. The room went silent again. The prosecution leaned in, eager to let her speak. There is a list in Hollywood. It's not written down, but everybody knows it exists. It's the list of people you don't speak against. The untouchables. Pop was on that list. Tyler was on that list. And Oprah, she practically created it. She explained that this list wasn't an actual document, but an invisible boundary. The moment you criticized one of these figures, even if you had proof, you were immediately labeled difficult, crazy, or worse, dangerous to the industry. Monique said she found herself on the other side of that boundary in 2010, and she's been fighting her way back ever since. She mentioned names, not with accusation, but with context. Don't you think it's strange? She said. How many people worked with Diddy, Tyler, and Oprah, and then suddenly disappeared? She cited actors who had one hit show, one award season buzz, and then were gone. Some of them didn't play the game. Some of them said no, and then she lowered her voice and said, and some of them saw things they were never supposed to see. The court permitted her to read a brief statement from a former actor, redacted for protection, who described a retreat hosted by a powerful male filmmaker, where phones were taken, contracts signed, and strange rituals observed. Monique didn't claim it was Tyler Perry, but she didn't deny the implications either. She let the jury sit with the unease. The judge reminded everyone that these were allegations, but Monique's message was unmistakable. The industry wasn't protecting art, it was protecting secrets. And the cost of telling the truth. They'll take your career, your reputation, your peace, and leave you to explain to the world why your phone never rings again. When asked directly if she believed Diddy played a role in her career being sabotaged, Monique nodded yes. Not at first, but eventually, yes. And I didn't realize how deep it went until years later. She explained that after the Precious campaign fallout, when the blackballing began, she received a call from a junior executive who had worked at Regal TV, Diddy's media company. He told me, and I quote, you rubbed the wrong people. It's not just about Tyler and Oprah. Puff don't like noise either. The court leaned in. Monique testifies that the executive hinted Diddy had been approached by Perry's team for future project partnerships. The deal was simple, she said. They wanted access to Puff's platforms, and I was the obstacle. She said that multiple meetings between Perry and Diddy happened behind closed doors. Ones she later found out about through mutual contacts. They discussed my name, not its talent, as a problem. Then, the prosecution presented emails between a PR firm hired by both Regal and Tyler Perry Studios discussing managing narratives around Monique and Cassie Ventura. The first time the court saw a direct digital link between both women's reputations being carefully manipulated in tandem. That moment hits hard. Monique continued, saying she believed her difficult label was passed around intentionally. They used that word like a virus. Infect one casting director with it, it spreads to everyone. Soon, your name comes up in a release, and they already have the reason to say no. It was then that she said something few ever say under oath in Hollywood. I wasn't black folk. I was white folk. By black people who looked like me, and people who feared losing their own spot more than they cared about doing right. I didn't want to be here, Monique began, her voice steady but tired. But I needed to be, because what they did to me, what they did to Ashley, what they're doing to young women and men right now, it won't stop unless someone says it with a mic louder than theirs. She explained how she was contacted by the prosecution 2 months prior, and initially said no. I wasn't going to relive it, she said. Wasn't going to expose my family, my trauma, my pain again. But then I saw the Prince recordings. I saw Diddy shouting in court. I saw Cassie break down on the stand. That's when she said she broke. Monique described her final decision to testify as a moment of spiritual clarity. I heard my grandmother's voice saying, baby, don't let them write your story without you in the room. And I knew I had to come. Her final minutes on the stand were devastating. The prosecution asked, in your opinion, Ms. Jackson, what was the root cause of this entire system of silence? Monique answered, fear. Everybody in this industry is scared. Scared to lose a job, scared to lose a deal, scared to lose relevance, and scared to tell the truth because people like Puck, like Tyler, and yes, like Oprah, have made it very expensive to do so. She looked toward Diddy and said quietly, "You thought nobody would talk, that you built an empire strong enough to silence everybody, but now you're sitting in silence, and I hope you finally hear us." And she stepped down.
Surety/principal parties, transaction logs, or escrow accounts, UCC1 filings, and you're asking